This conference will now be recorded.
ఓకే ఫైన్ పర్లేదు వినిపిస్తుందంట చెప్పేస్తాను ఓకే ఫైన్ సో నౌ విల్ కంటిన్యూ అవర్ క్లాస్ సో టుడేస్ క్లాస్ ఇస్ chronic pancreatitis. This is for your exam purpose and your PG entrance exam also. So first we will talk about the definition, then other about the etiology, pathogenesis, and then clinical presentation and management. So chronic pancreatitis is a relapsing inflammatory process, results from variable degree of parenchymal destruction, and this is the most important part, it is irreversible. Most important part is irreversible. So this is the one which differentiates acute from chronic pancreatitis. Okay, so once it becomes irreversible and it is histologically proven, it is chronic pancreatitis. Okay, so because of this chronic process, irreversible inflammatory damage, consequently the manifestations of exocrine and endocrine deficiency occurs along with abdominal pain. So now types, there are few types: chronic inflammatory, chronic obstructive, chronic calcifying. So in obstructive, when there is some kind of obstruction because of pseudocyst, tumor, or stenosis, etc., it is obstructive. Calcifying, multiple along the ducts, multiple intraductal calcifications, protein plugs are all causing stenotic ducts and other things. So calcifications happen, and because with these things, the patient will develop pancreatitis. Third is chronic inflammatory pancreatitis. It is a autoimmune type of pancreatitis with infiltration of mononuclear inflammatory cells. So this is the risk factors. It is actually classified by TIGAR-O system. Okay, toxic, idiopathic, genetic, autoimmune, recurrent, obstructive, etc. TIGAR-O classification by Whitmore. Okay, so majority of the chronic pancreatitis is by alcohol. And other things, other things like idiopathic, hereditary, hyperparathyroidism, hypertriglyceridemia. Okay, so hypertriglyceridemia, autoimmune pancreatitis, obstruction. So how does obstruction cause chronic pancreatitis? As I said, stenosis of a duct, it causing, as we have seen before here, obstructive pancreatitis, causing because of stenosis, the pancreatic enzymes will get auto-activated in the pancreas, and the pancreatitis will start, and it will is a recurrent one, so it becomes a recurrent attacks of pancreatitis leading to chronic pancreatitis. Remember always, with increasing number of attacks of acute pancreatitis, the risk of chronic pancreatitis also keeps on increasing. So hyperparathyroidism, because of this causes hypercalcemia. So because of hypercalcemia, so the person will be more prone for pancreatitis. So again, you know, trauma, pancreatic divisum, autoimmune, these are other things are also known. Okay, some are like idiopathic, unknown causes will be there in chronic pancreatitis. Reasons what we cannot point out to, it is called idiopathic. Again, TIGAR-O, toxic metabolites like alcohol, tobacco, It is written wrongly. It is hyperparathyroidism causing hypercalcemia. Nutritional, like tapioca, it is caused by consumption of tapioca, which has toxins, and due to the toxins, pancreas get damaged, and hyperlipidemia, chronic renal failure, etc. So most common genetic cause for chronic pancreatitis is PRES. Second is SPINK gene, SPINK1. Others are CFTR gene. This is cystic fibrosis gene. CFTR is cystic fibrosis gene. Okay. So again, chymotrypsin C gene, autoimmune. Autoimmune is a type 1 autoimmune pancreatitis is associated with the type 1 diabetes. So other things are obstruction like sphincter of Oddi dysfunction, annular pancreas, pancreas divisum, malignancies, strictures, stones, etc. Just a minute. So, so these are the TIGAR-O classification. So toxics, prolonged alcohol abuse. It is not given in any standard textbooks, but consumption of more than 70 grams of alcohol every day for few years. It is called. It is a risk factor for many other things. Pancreatitis, malignancies. It is considered as heavy alcohol utilization. Heavy alcohol utilization or significant alcohol history. Some books give 100 also. Some books also give it 100. So let's keep it 90. Uh, but the mechanism by which it does is protein concentration, alcohol denaturation of protein or dehydration, whatever you call. It is called increased protein concentration in the duct. Lithostatin secretion by external cells, increased glycoprotein secretion, protein precipitation. This is one of micro plugging. Protein plugs will start form and stone formation will also form. Whenever there is a micelle formation and stone formation, automatically it will, the size of the stones keeps on increasing, causing ductal obstruction. Okay. And now on the obstruction, there is auto activation of pancreatic enzymes causing auto digestion. So abnormal secretion of pancreatic enzymes is also caused by toxics like alcohol. Okay. So direct SNR injury by acetaldehyde. Activation of pancreatic stellate cells cause extensive fibrosis. Any inflammation, especially stellate cells are seen in liver, brain, etc. These will cause fibrosis. Brain, they don't. Stellate cells are not there in the brain. They are seen in the liver. They are cause extensive fibrosis. Smoking is always it is a co-thief. Along with alcohol, it always causes problems. It increases the risk of malignancy also. It increases the risk of chronic pancreatitis also. So other things are idiopathic. When no other identifiable factor is found, it is called idiopathic. So reasons will be underlying unidentified genetic or molecular problems. So genetic mutations, just see, remember the names at your level, it is not necessary. Most common is PRES1. Okay, this increases the risk of malignancy also by 40 times. So by the age of 40, person has a risk of CA pancreas more than 40 times. By age of 70, more than 70 times compared to the relative normal population. Okay, other things CFTR is cystic fibrosis, SPINK, etc. So autoimmune again, CD4, CD8 cells and IgG4 positive plasma cells. So lymphoplasmocytic sclerosing pancreatitis. So just remember this itself, that is more common. Duct origin antigen. Okay, so body itself will start damaging the pancreatic tissue. So recurrent and or severe acute pancreatitis. So again, prior episodes of pancreatitis, post-pancreatic, one episode of pancreatitis with ductal scarring is enough. Stenosis happens, and again the episodes of pancreatitis keeps on happening. So again, obstructive. Obstruction can be because of many reasons like stones, malignancies, cystic neoplasms, or adenocarcinoma. Cystic neoplasms like serous cystic adenocarcinoma, mucinous adenocarcinoma, etc. Anomalous variations of ductal, like we have spoken just before, pancreas divisum, annular pancreas, etc. Because of the congenital variation, like pancreas divisum, dorsal duct and ventral duct do not fuse. So main pancreatic secretion is from minor pancreatic duct. So major pancreatic duct will not be draining the pancreas effectively. So again, it will be causing pancreatitis. So what is the clinical presentation of chronic pancreatitis? The first and foremost reason that brings the patient to you is pain abdomen. Typically in the epigastric region, continuous dull aching radiating to the back. Aggravation of pain happens, recurrent attacks of aggravation and relieving of pain happens, and sometimes pain can be aggravated even with a fatty meal, that is also present. And the persistence of pain is with significant incapacitation also happens. In some cases, long-standing cases, it is known to occur. So these patients, because of the pain, they are unable to eat. They will start developing weight loss. Second, because of exocrine deficiency, again, there will be loss of fat soluble vitamins. They are unable to eat any oily foods or anything. Again, this will also add on to the weight loss and vitamin deficiencies. And endocrine deficiency is a very late finding. Usually it is very late. So if the endocrine deficiency is also there, they'll start developing diabetes. Okay. So how does it happen? Well, like once the chronic pancreatitis starts, once the chronic pancreatitis starts, initially the pain is very less actually, but over the course of the disease, the chronic pancreatitis keeps on increasing, and there is a severe increasing inflammation of the pancreas, and the pancreatic tissue will get damaged slowly and slowly. So during that process, pain at some point it will peak, because at that point maximum pancreatic tissue is being damaged, after which the pancreatic tissue is already lost. Because some tissue is already lost, the intensity of the pain keeps on going down over the period of time. So after some point of time, the chronic pancreatitis patients will not have any pain. That doesn't suggest that the pancreatitis is now reduced. It suggests that the pancreatic tissue is gone. Okay, so this is it about the pain abdomen. So other things will also be there. Obstructive jaundice can also present in this case. This epigastric masses can be present with epigastric mass, suggestive of pseudocyst of pancreas. And always keep in mind, elderly with sudden onset of diabetes and pancreatitis always suspect malignancy. It is a feature of malignancy. Okay. As I said, for diabetes or exocrine deficiency to present, more than 90% of parenchymal tissue has to be lost. At such scenario, vitamin A, D, E, K all are lost, and these has to be supplemented. These patients, because vitamin K is not there, bleeding tendency. Osteopenia and osteoporosis is because of vitamin D deficiency. So vitamin A, E is also lost, so you have to supplement the vitamins also. So extra pancreatic like pseudocyst, GI hemorrhages can also happen because of pressure of the pseudocyst can also erode into the surrounding tissues. They can cause other problems. So there are other complaints, syndromes associated with chronic pancreatitis. It is called Wadsworth syndrome, in which the distal bile duct in the head of pancreas is obstructed. You can see it this here. So at this part it is an arrow. Okay, correct. So if any stone is obstructed at this part, or sorry, stenosis of the pancreatic duct happens at this part, the bile duct is also obstructed along with chronic pancreatitis. So this is called Wadsworth syndrome. Okay, so this is again one complication of pancreatitis. This can also be presentation in pancreatitis. Okay, so we will discuss about how to treat those cases later. Okay, how do you diagnose? First of all, the clinical diagnosis, that's all. The patient typical history of acute pancreatitis in the past, alcohol abuse, recurrent attacks of pain in the abdomen, with or without increased amylase lipase. First, your doubt should be chronic pancreatitis. Lab values of amylase and lipase have limited value. Okay, as I said, amylase and lipase, the amylase and lipase levels increase of amylase and lipase suggest the tissue damage or pancreatic acini damage. Other than that, they do not suggest anything. So if more the tissue damage, more increase in amylase and lipase, as seen in acute pancreatitis. But chronic pancreatitis, there is a loss of SNR tissue. So you cannot expect a normal increase, regular increase of amylase and lipase as seen in acute pancreatitis. Okay. So in chronic pancreatitis, you won't see. So increased bilirubin with ALP suggests of biliary obstruction. This is the diagnosis. So there are other ways of diagnosing acute pancreatitis. It is not biological, it is radiological. Just CT, CT, ultrasound, MRI, and endoscopic ultrasound. So these are the four things how you use radiology to diagnose chronic pancreatitis. Older definitions used to be that chronic pancreatitis is only a histopathological diagnosis, but now it is actually changed. Okay, now CT scan of abdomen is actually the armamentarium, the initial investigation what we usually do. So here what we can see is we can see the pancreatic tissue morphology, the complications of complication of chronic pancreatitis. Sorry, it is CP. I have written complications of CT. So here we can see dilated pancreatic duct, ductal atrophy, side pancreatic duct branch dilation, calcifications, peripancreatic fluid. If there is any enlargement or nodules, it suggests that malignancy. Any bile duct obstruction, irregular parenchymal contour, again it suggests obstruction, malignancy. So assessing these two things, so irregular parenchymal contour, focal pancreatic enlargement or nodules, or simply to put nodules, these two are risk factors or suggestive of malignancies. Okay, so other things, assessment of complications of pseudocyst, venous thrombosis, duct disruption, especially in a case of trauma. Especially in a case of trauma. Most common cause of traumatic pancreatitis or traumatic ductal disruption is in adults or in children, both vary. Adults it is blunt, in children it is penetrating abdominal injury. Okay, remember this is again another examination question. So if any arterial, splenic artery or pancreatic or duodenal artery aneurysms are there, most common is splenic, second is gastroduodenal artery. These are the order aneurysms that are seen. Okay, or portal or splenic vein thrombosis, these are better evaluated using CT scan of abdomen. So if you want to plan for any treatment of chronic pancreatitis, CT scan of abdomen is very much useful. Any duct more than 7 mm in diameter, any duct more than 7 mm in diameter is an indication for surgery. Okay, 7 mm, it is an indication for surgery. So here you can see calcifications in the head. Actually, this is the head, this is the neck. In the neck, you are seeing multiple calcifications are there. Okay, so this is pseudocyst of pancreas. It is seen near in the tail of the pancreas. This is the pseudocyst, and this is a false wall. So, sorry, this is how you see in a case of CT. So, if it is a toxic or idiopathic focal or scattered calcifications, etc., etc. Autoimmune calcifications are not seen, but obstruction, dilated duct upstream to the stenosis. That is the characteristic feature. Dilated duct upstream. This is the characteristic feature of obstructive pathologies. Here, diffusely enlarged pancreas will be seen in the autoimmune because of diffuse inflammatory cell infiltration. But idiopathic, again, the pancreatic tissue will be shrunken. Okay, focal enlarged lesions will be there, but usually in general it is pancreatic duct dilation will be there. Pancreas will all lose the texture and everything is shrunken in texture and everything. So other complications are seen in this kind of pancreatitis. So nowadays MRI is increasingly being used because MRI has better soft tissue delineation. One, second, no radiation toxicity. That is again another important. Secretin stimulation MRCP. This is recently increasing in this thing. Secretin is used for benign pancreatic, sorry, neuroendocrinal tumor of pancreas. NET. They are secretin stimulation tests. Secretin stimulation MRCP is used for identification of neuroendocrine tumors of pancreas. Except insulinoma, all others like trichogonoma, GRFoma, PIPoma, VIPoma, every omas are detected better using secretin MRCP. Okay, so MRI is superior to CT in anatomical tissue delineation. So pancreatic atrophy, other things are shown in a better contour than CT. But as of now, CT is the better. But now MRI is increasing in utility nowadays. So next come is ERCP. ERCP is mostly historical value. Used to be a gold standard, but now it is replaced with endoscopic ultrasound. Nowadays, endoscopic ultrasound is a gold standard, not even MRI and CT. Okay, this is indication only when there is a doubtful diagnosis. For example, if you need to do visualization of the opening of the sphincter of OD in the D2 part of duodenum. So again, if you want to take a brush biopsy of the biliary tree or something, if you want to stent the pancreatic duct, only therapeutic indications, then only ERCP is used. So here it is written, its role is mainly therapeutic procedure. Duct complications like stones, strictures, stenosis, pseudocyst, these kind of things are used. And sphincter of OD dysfunction, if it is there, ERCP is both a diagnostic and therapeutic. Just to do sphincterotomy, that is it. Patient symptoms will reduce a lot. So ERCP is of more or less historical value. So here the chain, see, you can see the filling defects in this case. Okay, this is not a very typical. This is the stenting. Actually, what you see here is actually a stent being passed through which the dye is being injected. Okay, so here the pancreatic duct is seen. Here the stone filling defect is seen as a filling defect. Okay, X-rays actually typically show the chain of lake appearance. Okay, CT scan also will show. Now it is now called endoscopic ultrasound or Cambridge criteria. This is the most gold standard for diagnosing of chronic pancreatitis. So you might ask, now CT scan will also do, MRI will also do, and endoscopic ultrasound is also doing the same. Why should we use an endoscopic ultrasound? Why not CT scan? Yes, CT scan and MRI have been proven to show that they will miss the early chronic pancreatitis. Early chronic pancreatitis is even picked up at a very early stage in an endoscopic ultrasound. Here it is written. Okay, so endoscopic ultrasound picks up early parenchymal changes. So that is the advantage of endoscopic ultrasound. But endoscopic ultrasound is not regularly used for many reasons. It is a invasive procedure, and again it is costly. CT scan is cheap, easily available, very quick, and you can see all the other surrounding structures also. Endoscopic ultrasound is effectively an ultrasound which is using the endoluminal or GI tract itself. Okay, so another advantage of endoscopic ultrasound is endoscopic ultrasound guided biopsy of pancreatic mass to rule out malignancy. So again, as I said previously, we were talking, if there is any enhanced nodule or any obstruction, you are doubtful whether it is an inflammatory mass or a malignant mass, then you have to take endoscopic ultrasound guided biopsy. But how will you take the biopsy? Through which path you will take the biopsy? You have to take transgastric FNAC of pancreatic lesion using endoscopic ultrasound. You should never go through duodenum. It should always be through stomach. The reason, stomach and pancreas are very in close adjunction to each other. There is no space at all. Pancreas lies on the back of stomach. So if you go through endoscopic ultrasound using ultrasound, there is no dissemination of any tumor cells. But the same way, if you use duodenum or something, one, more chances of injuring a blood vessel. Second, dissemination into the peritoneal cavity will happen. So the stage of the disease will increase. So that is why it should never be done. And number 3, endoscopic ultrasound is the best for diagnosis of small distal choledochal stones. Okay. Even MRCP also misses sometimes small stones. The best is endoscopic ultrasound. This is actually a MCQ for PG entrance. Okay, it is not MRCP, it is endoscopic ultrasound, which is the best for diagnosing of distal CBD stones. So the criteria are hyperechoic foci, strands, lobularity of the gland, cysts, main pancreatic duct dilatation, side pancreatic duct dilatation, stones, duct irregularity, etc. Actually, there is a scoring system using endoscopic ultrasound. There are 2 criteria, major A, major B in parenchyma. In ductal criteria, it is major criteria and minor criteria. Okay, parenchyma it is major A, major B and minor criteria. Ductal criteria is major criteria and minor criteria. And this is a bit high about your level. This is about the postgraduate level. So that is it. So this is a diagnosis. So now functional assessment, that is the most important. Why is functional assessment important? Because that fellow is chronically malnourished, calorie deprived, vitamin deprived, and other things. So your assessment should of these things should encompass before you go for any other treatment. You have to improvise his general condition, overall general condition. So you have to assess the fecal elastase. Anything less than 100 mcg per gram is severe chronic pancreatitis. Okay. Steatorrhea is more than 7 grams. This is a standard question. After intake of 100 gram fat for 3 consecutive days, more than 7 grams of per day of steatorrhea, more than 7 gram per day loss of fat is considered as steatorrhea. Okay, so you have to then correct these problems also. So treatment. So the main aim of treatment is containing the destruction of pancreas. Second, eradication or control of the pain, severe pain. Okay, so this is the only two things. One, eradicate pain. Second, preserve the pancreatic function. These are the only 2 things that you do. Okay, so intractable severe pain, top-down approach. Mild pain, you start from NSAIDs. So these are that are used. Vitamin deficiency and fat deficiency do not occur in these patients. Second, pain control, paracetamol. You start with paracetamol, you slowly increase it. Tramadol, morphine, other things are used. Chlorpromazine, clomipramine, like antidepressants, etc., etc. These are also used in these cases. So again, there is a controversy regarding the utilizing of morphine. So morphine, they say the sphincter of Oddi will contract, and the chronic pancreatitis patients or acute pancreatitis patients, it should not be given. But there is a controversy is there. Some books say to give, some books suggest not to give. So the most important again is habit modification. Avoid smoking and alcohol. Avoid fatty food. So neurolysis, if the pain control is not achieved, severe pain, then celiac axis is damaged. The celiac axis is damaged by injecting 100% alcohol using endoscopy. So mixed results. Results are only for temporary improvement. Some people will have good results, some people don't. But because of the lysis of the celiac ganglion, there will be some significant vagolytic effect. Post hypotension, other things are also there. It is a last line of approach, like failed medical management. With persistent pain, then only it is used. So other procedures like endoscopic procedures, as I said, ERCP guided. stenting, stone ESWLs for endoscopic shockwave lithotripsy for stones, stone removal endoscopically, drainage of pseudocysts, decompression of pancreatic ductal leaks. Other things are also done using ERCP. So this is useful only for proximal pancreatic duct. See, whether it is a ductus stenosis or stone removal or ESWL for stones, this is for only for proximal stones. But drainage of pseudocyst, usually one stent, just a pancreatic duct stent. So usually these pseudocysts will have a connection with the main pancreatic duct. So if the main pancreatic duct is stented across the sphincter of OD, so these pseudocysts will automatically drain into the GI tract. They will resolve automatically. So this is how this is done. Okay. So that is the thing. So endoscopic shockwave lithotripsy for stones. These are the upcoming ones, but results have to be yet to be seen. So results are 50% or less than 50% effective in improvement of pain or frequency of attacks. Multiple procedures are needed because it is a very technically demanding procedure. Not all can do. But coming to surgery, it is very effective. 90% improvement of, some say 70, some say 90, but many people feel better after surgery. Not 100%, definitely not 100%, but many feel better after the surgery. So surgery has to be used for complications of pancreatitis like pseudocyst, obstruction, any obstruction of GI tract, any vascular complications of chronic pancreatitis like aneurysm of splenic artery. These conditions you have to intervene. So just you should know the names. Don't try to know other things. Either they are drainage procedures or resection procedures or combination of both. Okay, drainage is modified Pusto, parenchymal resection or dual, modified Pusto, etc. Parenchymal resection is Beggar, Bernese modification of Beggars, Whipples, and Frays. Okay, so it all depends upon the anatomy, morphology, and diameter of the duct. So what is the disease process? Diameter of duct. So large duct, as I said, more than 7 mm, then only surgery is done. So so longitudinal, this is modified Pusto. So this is the modified Pusto. Here spleen is also preserved. In the modified Pusto, spleen is preserved. Here we open the pancreatic duct along the dilated part. We will remove the stones and we will attach with a part of Rook's loop of jejunum, just like the image in the image. Okay. So this will be the posterior one, and this will be the anterior one. So it will be like that. The pancreatic duct drains directly into the jejunum. So outcomes, this is the most commonly done procedure. Okay. So this is the most commonly done procedure. So outcomes, 70% to 80% relief over 10 years with the diffusely dilated duct and no mass. If there is no mass, remember, pancreatic, so the pacemaker of pancreas lies in the head of pancreas, and maximum secretion of any exocrine or endocrine, not endocrine, maximum exocrine secretion also lies in the head, and maximum insulin secreting beta cells also lie in the head. Okay, so if the inflammatory mass is there, the more chances of exocrine and endocrine deficiencies will be there. And pacemaker of pancreas lies in the head. Okay, so that is the importance of head of pancreas. So if there is no head mass, then you can just do lateral pancreaticojejunostomy. If there is any pancreatic head mass, then the head coring is done, like duodenum preserving pancreatic head resection. It is called Bernese modification or this thing. Sorry, I forgot the name. No? So Beggars, duodenum preserving pancreatic head resection, that is Beggars, and Bernese modification. Yeah, see, Bernie, Beggar, Frey, these are all duodenum preserving only. Okay. Sometimes pancreatic or duodenectomy, it is called Whipples. So there are this is one of the few benign conditions where Whipples is done. So what is the indication? Wadsworth syndrome. Before I was telling you, distal pancreatic duct stone obstruction in a chronic pancreatitis or mass causing distal pancreatic bile duct obstruction. It's called Wadsworth syndrome. In such scenarios, you have to go for a Whipple's surgery. So the head is removed, drainage is established. Okay, so benign conditions with Whipple's. So again, if Whipple's is done, biliary obstruction and suspicions of malignancy in head of pancreas. Okay, now this is something which is picking up. This is called pylorus preserving. This is called pylorus preserving pancreaticoduodenectomy. So this is the standard Whipple's. This is the standard Whipple's. In pylorus preserving, the pylorus is preserved. So the advantage is there is no delayed gastric emptying. So gastric function is preserved. It is called Longmire transverse procedure. Okay. So just I don't want you to. So I'll just show you the image. So the bile duct is preserved. All other pancreatic head is poured out, and drainage of pancreatic duct is established at this part. Okay. You can see that thing. Okay. Now the Rook's ring of jejunum will be attached like that. So this is Beggar's. This is where this is Frey's. Frey's, it is a lateral pancreaticojejunostomy with the duodenal head coring. That is Frey's. Bernice modification of Beggar's, no transaction at neck of pancreas. Anterior surface of mass palpated and poured out using electrocautery. Rook's limb is soon to remove the pancreas. So just like this part only. So I'll just show you. Only this part is opened out. LPJ is not done. This is just poured out and leaved, and duodenum is, or sorry, jejunum, Rook's limb of jejunum is attached to this part. So that is of Bernice modification. So small duct disease or diffuse sclerosis, it is called Ibziki procedure. Just like a V, it's just a V part of tissue is taken out and just sutures are placed. That is Ibziki procedure. So long-term analysis, mainly medical. If the disease is severe and the patient is not able to tolerate diffuse disease, so total pancreatectomy with islet cell transplantation. Okay. So this is it. So total pancreatectomy when suspicion of malignancy is there and pancreas is almost all gone, such cases it is done. Pancreatectomy is done. So islet cell transplantation is done by injecting. See, what they do is take the pancreas of the person, enzymatically digest all the pancreatic acini. So islet cells are selectively surviving, and all the collected islet cells are injected into the portal circulation of the same person. So directly they will go into the liver, and the person will start developing secreting insulin. Okay, so it is actually showing good results. So 4 pancreas are needed for every 1 person, normal person. So the islet cells will be injected, and directly 5 years they can have a very good result. Insulin independence can be shown. So outcome is really not that important at your level. Okay. So 10 years, up to 10 years, they can have a good 50% insulin independence, which is really good actually. But the islet cell auto transplantation is not done in many centers, mainly because of the cost factor, donors issue. Donors should be there, pancreatic donors should be there, etc., etc. Okay. So now only cases of hereditary pancreatitis, these people have long-term benefits because they have a risk of pancreatic malignancy. They prefer it to be taken out, pancreas to be taken out and supplemented using this pancreatic cell islet transplantation. Next is Ibziki procedure. I have said V-shaped pancreatic resection, etc. So the most important is pancreaflat or pancreatic lipase in enzyme oral supplementation, 20,000 international units per day. Okay, dosing is before meals, used for pain relief and steatorrhea. So again, this is a controversy. PPI to suppress acid secretions. Some books suggest to give proton pump inhibitors. They say the chronic pancreatitis severity is also reduced by using proton pump inhibitor double dose. Some standard books are not giving as on now. Which standard books are not giving? So this is about the dosages that are given. Standard is Creon 20,000 international units per day. Okay. So something which is very interesting thing for you. So D-Egidio classification. This is for chronic pancreatitis with duct pseudocyst communication. So just go through. This is an exam orientation question for you. Okay. So this is about chronic pancreatitis. Anyone have any doubt? Just please ask me. We have only 10 minutes. I'll clear your doubts. Otherwise, I'll finish the class. Okay, we'll finish the class. Yeah.
Once, please repeat the reason why endoscopic ultrasound should be done transgastrically approach. I mean transgastric approach.
That is only in a see, pancreas lies just behind the pancreas stomach. Okay, if you go into duodenum and then start doing it now, it will enter the peritoneal cavity. The tumor cells will enter the peritoneal cavity na? Correct, huh? But
Yes,
if
sir,
you go
okay.
transgastric, it is just behind the stomach, so the seedling will not be there, or very less. It is very less chance. That is why it should only be through stomach.
Okay, sir.
If it came as a malignancy, anyhow you will remove that pancreas and stomach also, distal stomach also you will remove. The tract will also remove. But you cannot, once the peritoneum is breached, you can't do anything. It will be stage 4. If peritoneum is involved, it is any GI malignancy, peritoneum involved, it is metastatic. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
No,
Fine,
sir.
we'll end the class.